today is Thursday, October 24th, and it's a policy committee meeting, and the meeting is called to order at 5:02. And Isabella, has the meeting been properly posted?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. And I now need a motion to approve the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at them?
Yes, I'll have to abstain from the first one, there's number 19.
Oh.
But July 23rd was the joint house here.
So,
I'll make a
let's
motion.
do the first one for September 19th.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
I abstain.
And for the joint curriculum and policy meeting on July 23rd.
I'll motion that one.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we just have a few, onto our discussion items, we just have a few, they're pretty actually straightforward. This is, Superintendent Munoz was just looking through, because, way back when, we had a printout of, the 5-year cycle. So I let him kind of take a look and see which one is more urgent, pertinent to address, and, I will let you.
Yep, we'll start with 151.1, so you'll have the old policy, 151.1. It was last updated in 2019, so that's 5 years, a little bit more than 5 years actually. So we're on cycle just to review it. So I've done that and looked at a PRG base for 151.1 that they label 151.2. So there's a little bit of numbering difference there, but it's the same policy. It's the administration in absence of board policy. So what essentially this says is that if there's not a board policy, let's say something comes up and I have to make a decision.
It's your decision.
It says I make the decision and then I come back to the board if in fact there needs to be a board policy developed. And that's the gist of this. Look at last paragraph of the new 151.1, which is PRG 151.2. Whenever the superintendent concludes that a situation involving the absence of board policy calls for the adoption of a board policy or another board level decision, he or she is expected to bring the issue to the attention of the board for a decision or resolution in the first instance. So this, I think, is pretty straightforward. It's replacing an existing policy with a PRG based policy with Wisconsin statutes 118.24 and 120.13 referenced.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The only thing that I had suggested to change was the original PRG says district administrator, and then we wanted to be consistent to what we've changed in our district policy, so the only thing I had suggested was the superintendent / designee.
And
So all of our policies are consistent in the wording.
right, and just follow up with Dr. Christensen's comment there, you'll notice under section 118.24, it does list district administrator because that's what it says in the statutes. So that is the only one that's unchanged.
So are we gonna keep it at policy 151.2 or are we gonna just do the 151.1?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
That's the board's discretion. I guess it would be less confusing to keep it 151.1. It's the same policy, it does the same thing. It establishes in an absence of a policy what happens and that I have a responsibility and duty to bring it to the board when it's deemed necessary.
Because the last one was 2019.
Yep.
So,
So we'll keep it 151.1.
Yeah.
We referenced an old policy, this is the new, very little changes from the PRG base. Alright, and these are discussion items, so you're okay, I'll move on to 151.3.
pretty self-explanatory, so.
Yep, board policy adoption and review. This talks specifically, this was last updated in 2019. So this is again in that period of time where you wanna cycle these sorts of things. So this is a PRG base, essentially saying the same things, but it makes it very clear about first readings and second readings at this policy committee level, and that it keeps the same powers in place for this committee and establishes a 5-year cycle. It even says that on the back. There's legal references 1.120.13 of the state statutes, and then establishes a process that we're already using, meaning proposed policy first reading approval, and it gives 4 different options for this committee to keep bringing things back to the committee or even taking it directly to the board. It just really lays it out for how this committee itself operates, and actually this is how we are operating.
Yes.
It just makes it very clear. Questions? Alright, 151.4 is board policy, administrative procedures and review. And this is not a PRG base, you'll notice there's only one sheet. So 151.4, I believe this is an action as well, right Isabella? Yes. Largely because this hasn't been updated since 2019. And I made a couple of, I added and they were just an S. Everything is practically the same. Very little difference.
Stylistic changes.
But yeah, their grammar, there were spacing issues, things like that. But I looked at it and, the policies, the procedures, everything still runs through board policy committee. This essentially makes it very clear that this committee is empowered to make policies and procedures, and it just makes it very clear about what we already actually are doing.
I just noticed on the last paragraph.
Yep.
Right after and or, there's an extra space, I can find it.
Oops.
I just saw that.
We'll clean that up. And we'll clean it up before because we'll vote on this and then take it to the board on Monday, but we'll fix that. So that's 151.4, and then before we get to action committees, I thought we had changed this one too, but we changed our committees,
We did.
and I think we had a healthy conversation about it. But this hasn't been changed since 2017, policy 185. So this particular policy lists the wrong committees. So all I've done is X out 185, and then I've replaced it with standing committees of the school board, policy 185, for discussion only. And you'll see some markouts in there. Thank you, Isabella, for that, making the change from district administrator to superintendent or designee. We established the 4 committees that the board has established: personnel, finance, and auxiliary, curriculum, policy, and student services. So we make that new, and this will have to come back to this committee again for a second reading before going to the board. But it talks about quorums and pretty much it's PRG based, so it has a lot more of the WASB lawyer language about processes for the chair, that sort of thing. And it lists 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different Wisconsin statutes that are important to reference. Questions?
No, just for clarification, the reason why this was kind of delayed a little bit is there was a time where we had talked about changing our format to either committee as a whole versus committees.
That's right.
And we then finally decided on, let's just keep the committees, and then also, if we were gonna do that, which committees we were going to formulate and which one to get rid of. And so, once we finally did that, we're now bringing it up so we can put it in policy.
Yeah, so I think we're far enough along with this process. We had a great student services committee earlier
This week,
and with Mr. Halverson, I sat in, that was great. So all of the committees are healthy, operating. The CNL committee, I know there was a meeting today to prepare. We have multiple committees next week. Finance met earlier this week. Finance again meets on Monday. A lot going on with that. So we have a busy week this week, a busy week next week with our committees, which is great. It's great work in those committees, including this one. So we're gonna jump to action if that's okay, Dr. Christensen? No.
Just real quick on the
Yep.
the 185, after the strikeout of district administrator, you can strike out the whole sentence after, or his/her administrative level designee. Cause you already got designee after superintendent. Just one quick thing I see.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you see that, Isabel?
Made note.
Thank you. Let's put a note.
Can I ask, go back a little bit on
Yep.
the,
Committees?
policy the new 151.4, I'm just curious, like, so administrative procedures, you have like, do you have a separate like manual for procedures?
No,
Okay.
it's all in our policy book.
Okay,
We actually put
cause
quite a
I've
bit.
seen on other school districts, they'll have policy and then it'll say administrative manual, so it confuses me a little bit.
That's a Neola.
Okay, oh,
I'm a
gotcha.
former Neola person,
Okay,
so that's a Neola practice. Like they have a whole playbook,
okay,
for lack of a better word, about how they establish that. And they build that right in and keep it separate.
okay, Gotcha.
It's tomato.
yeah.
I
It's
think,
just kind of, it threw me a little bit, so I
Nope.
didn't know if it,
yep, jumping into a Neola district, you're gonna follow their playbook.
gotcha.
It's very scripted
Mm-hmm.
and not bad.
No,
You know,
no.
I
It's
have
different.
they just follow a little bit different system and procedure. It's a good question though. Alright,
Alright,
so 151, let me just get these organized before we jump into the action items for 31. So 151.4, we did look at it today and are pulling it right to action because it's so little in terms of changes, it's grammar changes. So I am recommending approval at committee and then we'll put it into consent for Monday.
Alright, so I'm looking for a motion.
A motion to approve policy 151.4 as presented.
and I'll
To bring
second.
it to full board.
Yes.
Motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So 151.4.
We'll move that into consent for Monday. And then next would be letter B, admission and intra-district transfers, 423.1. So this is, there's some minor changes here. I did use a PRG base. This policy hadn't been reviewed since 2015. Alright, so kinda came to the top of something. You have a good drink of soda there.
Yeah.
So 2015, so it's been quite a while with this. The major change, and it's not a major change, is the last sentence. If you look at the PRG base. And it establishes everything that's in the existing policy, rolling forward, and just says superintendent may determine placement other than their neighborhood school if deemed necessary. So it just clarifies that and makes that in policy. This gets into stuff like tuition and if you're gonna pay tuition and state statutes, number one, a non-resident student whose parent or guardian resides in Wisconsin but outside the district may file an application to enroll in the district that is accompanied by a written parental declaration of residency. These are very deep into enrollment, okay, very deep into enrollment. This is something that I handled directly, one of my job duties with several of the ladies in the office and also some of the clerical support out in the buildings. I like this PRG because they throw the statutes in there along with our procedures about what we expect from our families who are enrolling in the district. It's very clear, very clean. I am recommending approval.
I think we had a robust conversation last time too.
Mhm.
So. Any other comments, questions at all? Very straightforward today. So I need a motion to approve policy 423.1 admission and intra-district transfers. Move forward to the board.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next one, thank you. The next one, and I am recommending approval, it's been a lot of work, thank you to Dan Halverson, Principal Gebauer, a lot of other staff have been involved in adjusting this attendance policy. This particular policy right now has some information in it that is technically incorrect. It lists things about state law, it misstates a few things, so we wanted to make sure that all of those things were absolutely correct the way state law is now and how attendance works now. But also, if you wanna flip to the we used a little bit of PRG, but looked a lot at our local practices here. So 431 is really a very strong update, including in the digital version. If you look down to the third page, there's actually a link in there of the entire student parent handbook from this school year, which is important because under that number 6, high school students are approved to leave school grounds during a class period and or scheduled lunch period. You know, a lot of things from Mr. Gebauer about that practice, that you can't just take a template. I mean, they get pretty close, but this is actually how we do things here, with respect to attendance.
And just as a reminder, this was what we were given that last meeting, and this was in conjunction with staff.
Staff input.
Yeah, staff input, and then all we did was just combine the 6 and 7 into that
One.
one heading right there, and then just added those 2 paragraphs.
Yeah.
So
This-
this was input with the staff.
Yeah, quite a bit of work. Mr. Halverson has an attendance committee. He's got several different committees that have had hands on this. And we bumped into this actually because it's a little bit older, needs to be updated. But also, there's some technical parts. If you look at the old strikeouts of old 431, there's just some pieces that the way they're written isn't the way it actually works with all a part of 5 days. So the law is all a part of 5, 10 is a separate issue. So we have cleaned that up and made it right, extremely accurate as to how this works. So I do appreciate all the hands on it, along with several other policies we can talk about in future policy items. There's several on the docket that one Mr. Gebauer is gonna be working on this with, but we can get to that
Yeah.
after the vote here.
Any comments, any discussion? Okay, I'll need a motion to move policy 431 compulsory attendance.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Short and sweet, yeah.
Thank you. In future agenda items, couple things I wanna reference. Policy 424 it's a pretty robust piece, Mr. Gebauer, as part of some graduate work. He's putting some time into that, largely because it does have a lot to do with high school interactions. But he and I will be conferencing on it either tomorrow or next week before our next policy committee meeting. It is very detailed, like private school, parochial school, home-based educational program students in the district. It does need updating. Another one, gifts to the district. We've been receiving several gifts and donations to the district. And I wanna reference here and that Caitlin and her team, they're doing a great job. We're working on a whole new procedure for how the district can receive dollars and cents and have outreach sponsorships. So this is related to that, gifts to the district and sponsorships. We wanna make sure our policies are aligned with how we're receiving generous donations from the district, either of money or land. Staff protection has to do with, that would be a new policy to us. We'll make sure to put that out there. Has to do with making sure that we're providing a good work environment for our staff. in case, in some situations, they have to deal with some tough things. People coming into the office upset and these sorts of things. So that's what that has to do with, so
But there's a PRG policy for
Yes.
that. We just don't have it.
we just don't have it, But that is definitely something that I think in today's day and age is very important. There'll be a couple other things, I'll be looking through the 100s to try to get to the end of those. And then look at some high flyers in the 200s perhaps. Just based on years since last review.
And also too, if you can, what you're doing with the 184.
Yeah, 184 is gonna have to get broken up into multiple policies. It's actually mislabeled. 184 actually has to do with minutes. And it says business,
Yeah.
transaction of business.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and actually the whole policy, so I initially sat down with Caitlin, cause business, you think it's business. It actually doesn't have anything to do, no, it doesn't have anything, the way our policy is written, 184, it doesn't have anything to do with money. It actually has to do with other things, so I have to break it up into pieces to make sure that it's correctly aligned with what 184, and that's supposed to be minutes. Like minutes
It's
that,
like several things lumped into that one
Yeah.
policy that has to be actually teased out and have separate headings.
that's right,
So he's gonna have to kind of distill it, cause some had about our meetings and then
Yep.
another about just, it was all kind of like melded together in one policy.
Public
And it was-
comment.
Yeah, and then it was
Oh,
put in
yeah.
like transaction of business, it was just very
Yeah.
strange, so,
it doesn't belong there, so I'll break it up to 2 or 3 policies.
yeah.
But that'll be at the next meeting, it's sort of a hodgepodge, I bumped into it just looking at it,
Yeah, it's a very long,
yeah, and
I mean, not very, but
it'll make
That's
more
linked.
sense once you see it, you'll look at it and go, yep, that's mislabeled.
Mhm.
So we'll just break it up, sort of like we broke up curriculum. When curriculum was 330 and we broke it up to 330, 331, 332, it's very similar to that. Very similar to that.
So, and it doesn't necessarily have to go to the next meeting, it's just depending on how
Yeah.
quickly you can get
Yeah, it's,
to it. And none of these are a rush.
No. no, it's on my list of things to get to. But we will.
It's a 5-year cycle of ours.
And I think, do we have our meetings scheduled, future meetings?
I thought
We do?
Yep,
Just-
it's every third Thursday of the month.
Just making sure. Sorry, just
Yeah,
Wanted to
21st
throw-
of November's the next one,
Correct.
okay,
5:00.
just wanted to throw that out there before adjournment.
I think so. Just checking.
Alright. Shall we proceed?
Yeah, I gotta go home and do my leaves.
I know.
yeah, how do you get, and it's in the dark, so.
I will turn on the lights and
Hope for the best.
Very early.
it's
Just throw
drive
them
by.
into the neighbor's
If
yard.
you get some text messages about the superintendent blowing his leaves in the dark, that is happening, cause
You need a headlamp. Do you
I
have a
will,
headlamp?
I got plenty of lights out
Good
front.
weather to do it, for sure.
Plenty of lights out in front of the house.
I know, it's hard when it
We
gets
have our
dark so
next
early.
meeting. I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 5:25. I think that is a very.
That is